What's up, guys? This commentary may just well be the most helpful commentary I've ever delivered to all of you, so I would pay special attention because this could literally be life-changing. Actually, just kidding, this probably is not going to be life-changing, but it could help you in many ways in your life, perhaps making your life even a bit easier. Now, the gist of this commentary is basically how to get better grades in school. Right now, you're probably thinking, wow, this is going to be an extremely boring Asian-style commentary, 2 bucks. We don't want to listen to this. Why don't you go rant about how you can't get any pussy? Well, I will do that too, but I'll try to make it somewhat entertaining, and these will actually be very good tips that you probably haven't heard before. So, as many of you know, I do spend a lot of time on YouTube making videos and stuff. And contrary to popular belief, I do also have imaginary friends that I have to hang out with from time to time. So you're all probably wondering, how have you not been thrown out of your house yet for extremely terrible grades, because there's no way you can do well in school and do all of this other stuff at the same time. And to add on to that, I do also have many commitments in, school clubs. I'm involved in a few things, especially music. As some of you know, I play multiple instruments and stuff. So how do I manage to do all of this in one day and still manage to sleep? Well, my solution to this came by chopping down the time I spend on my least favorite activity out of all of those I just listed, which is school. Ironically, even though it's my senior year in high school, this is actually the year that I have the most workload. I'm taking like 5 AP classes. But every day, I spend less and less time actually doing work. In fact, I spend about an average of 1 hour doing schoolwork daily. If you're a youngster watching this video, like under the age of 14, 1 hour might sound like a huge amount of time. But once you get to this age, it's really not. I know a lot of people that basically just go home, spend like 8 hours doing schoolwork. So despite spending so little time actually doing work, I still managed to keep what I would consider pretty good grades. And in this commentary, I'm going to share with you guys some ways that you can also max out your time efficiency spent doing school so you can spend more time doing other things, such as barking. And in this commentary, I'm going to tell you how I do that. Now, this is very important. I'm not trying to give you guys any advice, really, by making this video. I'm not telling you to do what I'm doing. I'm just telling you what has worked for me. So don't go off doing what I'm about to describe and start failing your classes and blaming it on me. You're obviously going to have different teachers, different environment, different workload than me, so take caution before actually applying the things that I'm saying. So the number one thing that I've realized in school is that teachers are quite useless. They're usually pretty bad at explaining things, and you're better off learning it yourself than actually having them explain it to you in a lecture in class, which are usually quite boring anyways. They always have to explain things so that even the dumbest person can understand it. And also, you have to be very careful when people in your class are asking questions to the teacher, because sometimes those questions are so stupid that the teacher's response will just confuse everyone else in the class. So I've discovered that most of my classes, I'm better off spending that time doing work for other classes. So right now you're probably thinking, well, if you don't listen to the teacher in class, how do you learn those things? I do it by reading the class textbook. In practically all of my classes, the teachers just teach straight out of the textbook. They go unit by unit, and every test is based on like one unit or one chapter in the textbook. So basically, before every test, the night before, I will just read that chapter in the textbook. As I read it, I take very detailed notes, usually on the computer, so it goes pretty fast. And if it's something like chemistry or accounting or something, I will write down the formulas that I need to know, because on the tests, formulas are very important. And in the past, when I used to actually pay attention to my teachers, I would be so confused after every class. I would be like, what the hell is going on in this class? And then I would read the textbook where the people can actually explain things well in writing. And then I'm like, wow, this is easy as hell. And generally, reading a chapter in the textbook doesn't take a lot of time at all. In fact, it takes an hour at most of time. So I can basically learn 2 weeks worth of shiznat where my teachers are busy saying stuff that's probably detrimental to my learning. I just go home and learn it in about an hour of time. Sometimes there are still a few things that I don't quite understand, so usually the day before the test I'll go in to ask my teacher a few questions. Generally, if you're asking your teacher questions one-on-one, they'll actually be able to answer pretty well. So after I figure out just a couple of things that I don't understand from the textbook, I'm good to go for the test. So you might be thinking, well, $2, if you just cram every night before the test, won't you be screwed for the final exam because you don't know anything? Not true, because when I read the textbook, I just take all the notes right there. Usually in class, you have to take notes every single day, so if you take 10 days worth of notes, you're going to have 10 pieces of paper, and it's very hard to keep track of. But if you take all of your notes on one day by reading the textbook, it's probably 10 times easier to keep track of those things. Now, this tip will really only work for classes which do involve textbooks, usually math and science classes. Oh, and of course, history as well. Now, English is a class that you have to completely do the opposite. You want to pay attention as much as you can in English class so you don't have to do any work when you go home. Usually in my English classes, we read a very long book or a poem or something, and then our grade based on this comes from the essay that we have to write at the end of reading it. Now, theoretically, you don't actually have to read anything. You can just write a really good essay and you'll get a good grade, just as good as someone who read the book and wrote a good essay. So what I do is I'm just very attentive in class. I listen to what all the people who have read the book are saying. I write that stuff down because those are usually good comments. I notice which ones my teachers, like and which ones that they don't. And by the end of the unit of reading the book, I'll have, 5 to 10 themes that I'll be able to write about the book in an essay. And while I'm doing this, every night, I will also read the Spark Notes on the chapters in the book. Spark Notes is a website that you cannot live without, let me just tell you that. And Spark Notes gives me enough to say in class so that my teacher doesn't really catch on that I'm not doing any of the work. And similarly, the day before I have to write an essay for English, I'll take a look at the themes that I've written down from peeping on other people's comments. I will obviously also have written down page numbers to look into, and I will actually read some of those pages so I can get a deeper understanding of those parts of the book. And bada bing, bada boom, I've written a great essay, and my teacher thinks that I've deeply analyzed this book. It may seem simple and almost so stupid, but this simple formula has allowed me to become ranked in the top 5 of my class. I know many people who do way more work than I do and get way shittier grades because they haven't really thought about good ways to maximize their time. They'll do all that BS where they take a bunch of notes from the teachers and they go over it every night and make a bunch of useless flashcards or anything when they could just easily cram the night before the test. Now, generally, this works for me because my teachers don't actually check the homework during the unit while we're learning. Since I'm the type of guy who pulls it all together the day before the test, I would be very screwed if I actually had to know the stuff while everyone else was learning it. So if your teacher is someone who checks the homework periodically, then you might be screwed and you'll actually have to learn things like everyone else. And actually, I'll leave you with a final tip. This one is slightly more advanced and complicated, and it revolves around the fact that oftentimes your teachers will make you spend a lot of time doing something that doesn't actually count that much toward your grade. Other times, they'll make you do something that's very simple, but it has a huge impact on your grade. And sometimes these come from cross classes. What I mean by this is, for example, your chemistry teacher gives you this quiz on some ridiculously hard problems or something, and the quiz is only going to count for 5 points out of 1,000 points. Meanwhile, your math teacher gives you an enormous test on a unit that is extremely easy. So, should you spend a lot of time studying for that chemistry quiz and a little bit of time studying for the math test? No. You can't delegate your time based on the difficulty of the things that you're doing. You have to delegate your time based on the worthwhileness of the things you're doing. You should spend a lot of time on that math test since it's so easy. Get an A on it, maybe even ace it, and feel free to just get a C on the chemistry quiz. And sometimes it is true that something will be quite hard and it will be worth a lot, and those are the times that you really have to buckle down and actually do some work. And I've learned when those times are, and in those times, I do work as well. So knowing what things to not spend a lot of time and worry on, and knowing what things to actually spend a lot of time and worry on, is an extremely important skill to have. And in summary, knowing which classes to pay attention in and which classes to not, knowing which classes that you should cram for and which classes you should not, and strategically exerting yourself in different amounts based on different factors is going to be a lot more efficient than always trying your hardest and never trying your hardest. So I hope you've enjoyed this commentary, and feel free to leave some comments on how you do in school.